Hello and welcome to another edition of Conversations. I'm Angela Wilder and I have the pleasure of speaking with Lois Roewade today. She is another extraordinary person who lives right here in Winston-Salem. Good morning, Lois.
And good morning to you, Angela. Nice to be here.
It's nice to have you, and thank you for having us in your beautiful home.
It is one of the biggest joys of my life to be here.
Now, you didn't grow up in Winston-Salem, did you?
I certainly didn't, and I'm sure everybody will recognize that immediately by my lack of the southern accent. I am a northerner, but I moved down here 6 years, almost 7 years ago now.
Okay, and what led you to Winston-Salem?
Oh, shall we start with the Chicago weather, first of all? That was certainly a big factor after spending most of my life there and hating winter more and more every year. I finally decided that I had just had it with the cold weather. Also, I have family down here that I'm very close with, and I had always been spending a lot of time visiting them here, fell in love with the Winston-Salem area, and just decided that it was time to make a major change in my life.
Yes. So what in Winston-Salem did you fall in love with specifically?
The freedom it would give me to live in an environment that I've always wanted to live in, which is close to nature, an area that's green most of the year, more sunshine, that I could feel like I was almost living in a country area and yet be 20 minutes from a city. That was a hugely motivating factor. I loved Chicago, but it's big, dense, noisy, loud, busy, crazy city. And I just felt that I was getting to a point in my life where I wanted more calm, more peace around me.
Okay, so I can tell that you love peace and calm, but I also know you're an activist. And activism is not all about peace and calm. So first of all, how did activism become a part of who you are and what you do?
I grew up in a household with a mom and dad that were always politically active, socially active. I remember my dad taking me to precinct meetings when I was a 10-year-old kid. I'm not sure why he did that, but I remember going to them. I remember the dining room table full of political literature at election time, my dad out on the street knocking on doors, my mom going to PTA meetings, a lot of concern about what would be going on in our neighborhood. I just grew up with that.
It's in your blood.
I do feel like it's in my blood. I mean, sometimes kids go the opposite way of their parents and say, I grew up with that, I'm not touching that kind of stuff. But for me, it just seemed like this is what I should do. So, you know, from the time I was 18 years old, I was out there on the streets being involved in political campaigns and taking on social justice issues.
So here in Winston-Salem, what are some of the specific causes that you're involved in, and why are you involved in them?
I became involved even before I moved down here. I had already begun to spend extended winter time with my sister and brother-in-law who had already moved down here. And while I was here for 2 or 3 months, I couldn't just sit around and play tourist. So I found organizations to volunteer. And one of them was the Democratic Party of Forsyth County. So I already had become involved with the political scene down here before I even moved here. And then, of course, when I moved here, it just became a year-round commitment and activity. I have always been very much of an advocate for women's rights. So Planned Parenthood, NARAL, National Organization of Women, those are 3 groups that I am involved with as a volunteer and a a voice when needed, and I do get myself involved in activities and events that they sponsor and have been a worker bee for them.
Now, tell me a little about Indivisible.
Indivisible is a nationwide movement that erupted like a volcano after the 2016 election. It was a response to what happened in that election and how that election turned out, and it was a coming together of people who shared common values and goals, not necessarily Democrats. We had some Republicans and independents who were coming to our meetings because they felt we needed another direction in politics and social justice. I became very involved with the group here in Forsyth County, eventually became the co-director of their direct action team, and we were the ones that have been out on 4th Street and over at 5 Points, doing rallies, doing protests, and trying to keep issues in front of the voters. We know that here in North Carolina, it's a real tough job to try to change some of our senators and representatives' votes. We weren't pie in the sky that that was going to happen, but we felt our mission was to keep those issues in front of people that are driving by, make them think about women's rights, social justice, voter suppression, health care for everybody. And that's why I became involved in Indivisible, because I felt they were seriously trying to make a difference here in my own city.
Well, in today's climate of so much partisanism and so much vitriol, how do you keep yourself motivated to keep at it?
That is a great question, Angela, because it's hard sometimes. When day after day you are hit with statements, lack of facts, accusations, name-calling, demonization, discrimination, and living again in this state where we don't get a lot of positive wins, it is tough to keep your spirit and your motivation up. I get it from other people. When I get a little bit down, I know that I can find somebody who's up. So I talk to that person, and that person will energize me again. And then I've had people come to me and say, I just can't do this anymore. I'm just done. It's never going to change. Nothing will ever happen. And I try to give them the pep talk that somebody else gave to me and try to pick their spirits up again. But yeah, it's been a tough couple of years, and I have to get in my own head every once in a while. And it's a day-to-day thing.
Yes.
It's like, don't look at the big picture all the time. Just look at what you can do today, one step after another.
Yes. And speaking of steps, I know that even today when we're done, you're going out to canvass in some of the areas around us now.
Yes, I have been doing that quite a bit this campaign. The last time around, I sort of said, I've done this enough, I'm getting older, young people have to take this on, and when I saw what was happening again this time around, I said, I gotta get out on the streets because not enough people have been doing it, and I just decided that, yeah, I gotta go door knocking again. And really, for all of you out there, it's a very rewarding experience. When you actually get to talk to people and talk about issues, you do find that we all care a lot about the same thing. Maybe go about it in a little different way.
Yes.
But I do like that role of hoping that I'm encouraging people to get out and vote.
And that's, in a way, that's sort of what we're doing with this show, is that we want to have people talk to each other and listen to each other and to have conversations. Because I think that's the way to start to make some progress towards some common goals.
It really is, and you can do it Not all the time. There are people who are just so dyed in the wool,
Yes.
what their belief system or philosophy is, that it's very hard to have a conversation. And we have gotten so polarized in the
Yes.
last year or two. But I had a very pleasant encounter the other day. I knocked on a door. I thought this was a Democrat household. It turned out the woman said she had just bought the house, and I'm a Republican. And we ended up having a very pleasant conversation about, not a lot about politics, but she was wearing a sweatshirt with a band name on that happened to be a favorite band of mine. So we talked about music a little bit,
Yes.
and we smiled and we laughed and we had a pleasant conversation.
Yes.
And that's the way it should be able to be between people.
Well, music, you touch on music is one way that people connect. Also, art. And I know just looking at your home that art is also a part of your life.
Always has been. My degree from Northwestern University was in music education. I taught for a while and then just got off into all kinds of other arts management things rather than performing, which I really have never been. But I've always been involved, again, in the organizational side of things, of putting things together. When I lived in the Chicago area, I was the executive director of the Grammy organization chapter in Chicago for 8 years, which was just a hugely exciting and fun job. And then I went on to work as an arts management consultant in putting together dance festivals, music festivals, and concerts, and just have had a whole lot of fun and enjoyment during my years doing that sort of thing. Moved to Winston-Salem, and I've gotten involved with the River Run International Film Festival. And that is just a whole joyful thing. I do all the transportation for the 100 or so people that we bring in from all over the world to the River Run Film Festival.
And, you know, on that same note, how do you feel, are you hopeful that some of the production that used to come to North Carolina will one day come back?
We are very hopeful, but, you know, when the budget was cut so badly and money for film production was taken out of it, studios will go somewhere else.
Yes.
You know, there's always another city somewhere that's willing to pick up that slack. And that is certainly what has happened. We have tried with a grant program in the state to bring back some of that film and TV production, but it's dropped off considerably from what it was, and that's really too bad.
Yes. And then the River Run Festival comes every year? Is it an annual
Yes,
event?
every year. This will be our 21st year, and we have just gotten bigger and better every year. When I first started with it about 8 years ago, we were, at that point, only a 4-day festival. In the last 4 years, we have grown to an 11-day festival. Wow. We show hundreds of films of every genre, and huge audiences, lots of sold-out film screenings. It's a very, very big deal in Winston-Salem.
Yes,
it really is.
Yes, yes. Much
and
like
this year we'll have 2 fabulous festivals in Winston-Salem, because we'll have River Run in April, and then the end of July into August we'll have the Black Theater Festival.
Yes, that was, yes.
And
yes.
you reminded me of that, wearing your orange and black, because that's their colors.
Oh, my orange and black or
Oh,
red?
I'm sorry.
Well, my purple
It's
and
my
black.
orange, your purple and black.
Yes, there we go. Yes, we're vibing here. Yes,
Yeah,
all about the arts.
That's right.
Well, I know that you have a date with your tennis shoes and some neighborhoods.
And a clipboard with names and doors
There we
to knock
go.
on.
But you're helping our democracy to stay alive.
I care about it. I really care about this country. I am born and raised American. I love this country. I love being part of the global community, as we all should be. This talk about nationalism just makes me crazy, frankly.
Yes.
We are all sharing this planet.
Yes.
We all need to learn how to do that better, to respect each other, to love this beautiful earth we are on, and to stop all this hatred and separation that's going on right now. That would be my wish.
Lois, thank you so much. And thank you for tuning in. Join us next time and we'll have another great conversation.